Hello everyone. I'm going to discuss about psychodynamic theory. First, what is psychodynamic theory? Psychodynamic theory is the study of interrelationship or various parts of the mind, personality, or psyche as they relate to mental, emotional, or motivational forces, especially at the unconscious level. One of the most famous historical figures in psychology is Sigmund Freud. Sigmund Freud is an Austrian neurologist and the founder of psychoanalysis. He used the psychodynamic theory to explain everything, from child development to abnormal psychology and to personality. Each person's unique pattern of thoughts, feelings, and behaviors. Let's go to psychodynamic perspective. There are three core assumptions of the psychodynamic perspective. First assumption is primacy of the unconscious. Second assumption is critical importance of early experiences. Third assumption is psychic causality. Assumption 1. Primacy of the unconscious. Contend that the majority of psychological processes take place outside conscious awareness. The, the activities of the mind or psyche are presumed to be largely unconscious. Research confirmed this basic premise of psychodynamic. Many of our mental activities, memories, motives, feelings, and the like are largely inaccessible to consciousness. Assumption 2. Critical importance of early experiences. Posits that early childhood events play a role in shaping personality. Early experiences, including those occurring during the first weeks or month of life, set in motion personality processes that affect us years, even decades later. Assumption 3. Psychic causality. Psychodynamic theory points that nothing in mental life happens by chance, that there is no such thing as a random thought, feeling, motive, or behavior. Most theorists and researchers agree that thought, motive, emotional responses, and expressed behavior do not arise randomly, but always stem from some combination of identifiable biological and psychological processes. Under psychodynamic perspective is psychoanalytic theory. In psychoanalysis, there are levels of mental life. Freud saw something mental functioning as operating on three levels. One is unconscious, two is preconscious, and three is conscious. Let's now talk about the first one, the unconscious. The unconscious includes drives and instincts that are beyond awareness, but that motivate most human behavior. Drive is a mental presentation of an inner bodily source of excitement. This drive can only become conscious in disguised or distorted form, such as dream image, slip of the tongue, neurotic symptoms. An example of Freudian slip is a man who accidentally used a former girlfriend's name when referring to a current girlfriend. The second is the preconscious. The preconscious contains images that are not in awareness, but that can become conscious either quite quite easily or some level of difficulty. The last one is conscious. Consciousness plays a relatively minor role in Freudian theory. Conscious ideas stem from either the perception of external stimuli, or what we call our perceptual conscious system, or from the unconscious and preconscious after they have evaded censorship. The iceberg model. What is What is the iceberg model? Our personality under psychoanalytic theory is likened to an iceberg model. As you can see, there is the ego, superego, and the id, and conscious, preconscious, and conscious. Freud believed that the internal mind was built on three unconscious parts: the id, ego, and the superego, that are always in conflict with one another. and that it's thought and that it's through this internal conflict, the anxiety it produces and out desires to reduce it that shape who we are. According to Freud, the first unconscious influence to emerge is the id, which emerged at birth and wants immediate gratification for primitive urges like hunger and thirst. It is it is it is driven by the principle or the instinctive drive to seek pleasure and avoid pain over time. And through the influence of parents, the infant developed the second unconscious influence of the superego. The superego is the part of the mind that accesses the conscious and moral compass. This leads the development of new emotion like the ability to feel pride of our accomplishment but also guilt about our shortcomings. The id and the superego battled it out in the unconscious realm, not unlike the devil and angel on someone's shoulder, until eventually a new unconscious construct emerged to try to bring peace. The ego or the self is the rational part of a person, as seen by the ego. Is is driven by the reality principle, attempting to satisfy the need of the ids and the idealism of the superego, while urging us to adopt behavior that will work in the real world. In other words, the ego finds the middle path between the id's primal desires and the superego judgment and guilt. These three aspects of personality are always interacting within a person to influence his or her personality and behavior. For example, when the id says, "I'm hungry, I need to eat right now," and the superego yells back, "You can't, we're in the middle of class." And then the ego offers a compromise. Drink some water, chew a stick of gum, and then go eat after class is done. Defense mechanism. According to Freud, this power struggle can also lead to unhealthy behavior, a neurosis, a tendency to experience negative emotions. For example, an overpowered id might be to impulsivity, and while the underpowered id might lead to someone to deny their needs. A dominant superego could lead to crippling guilt, while the weak one could lead to selfish and cruel behavior. Small unbalance could lead to an famous small unbalance could lead to the infamous Freudian sleeps, where repressed unconscious urges can sometimes surface through a slip of the tongue, like saying, "I'm sad you're here," when you intended to say, "I'm glad you're here." When larger imbalance occur, people try to handle the resulting anxiety with defense mechanism unconscious. Sometimes, unhealthy behavior intended to reduce anxiety and protect ourselves from discomfort. Some of these defense mechanisms are helpful, like sublimation or redirecting our socially unacceptable desires into socially appropriate behavior, like handling your aggressive desires by enrolling in martial art class. Defense mechanism use many factors, such as the behavior of you've seen model for us, what has been success for us in the past, or even kind of anxiety is being produced by the unresolved conflict. The five stages of psychosexual development, in addition to the development of the id, ego, and the superego. Freud also believed that children went through a series of developmental stages and that failure to resolve conflict. And each of these developmental stages could result to an habits behavior expressed. When we reach adulthood, everything from smoking to obsessing about cleanliness. Freud also believed that during each of these stages, the id produces pleasure-seeking urges that correspond to parts of the body called erogenous zones. These zones also give us the names of the 5 stages of psychosexual development. First is oral, anal, phallic, latency, and genital. Oral stages is 1 to 2 year. Infant achieves gratification through oral activities such as feeding and thumb sucking. Anal stage 2 to 3 year. The children learns to respond to some of the demands of society such as bowel and bladder control. Phallic stage 3 to 6 year. The child learns to realize differences between males and females and become aware of sexuality. Latency stage 7 to 11 year. The child continues his or her development, but sexual urges are relatively quiet. And the last is genital stage 11 and up. The growing adolescent shake off all dependencies and learn to deal maturely with the opposite sex. That's all, ma'am. Thank you.